he had done some things to some ducks at the park that had resulted in two of them being dead. Officer Smith looks at his friend, like Officer Dave, and he says, "Get me the burrito." He says to the room, "If y'all motherfuckers make me miss my show, I'm gonna start naming every single one of you in here I've given a slappy to." And they all shut the fuck up. Hi, I am Mace Man. I was the person in the video about the guy who used to work at a corrupt jail and now works at a residential facility for people on probation and going through our drug treatment program. I appreciate about 98% of everything you guys had to say. It's been amazing. It added something to my life I think I really needed. Appreciate the hell out of so many of you.
Tell me about your work now.
Yeah, okay, so my work now, we're more geared towards facilitating, helping them make better choices. And why places like this are so important is because most of the people in jails and prisons are going to, at some point, come back into society. They're going to time serve. Like, they can't just be kept there indefinitely because they weren't given a life sentence for whatever it was that they did or pled guilty to or whatever. It's a lot better for them to have a job or go through like anger management classes or addiction rehabilitation coursework and things like that, so they're not just doing the exact same thing that they were doing when they got locked up the first time. It's helped save the taxpayers you money. It helps keep new victims from being created. It's just overall a better idea, and like not every single one of them is going to be successful. Like that is a completely unrealistic
Yeah.
goal, but it's still a lot better than just like, okay, here you go, have fun, try not to stab anyone. My facility is like this big college campus, and we have different dorm buildings to house people. Like we have one for the guys in work release and what we call problem solving beds, and we have another one for guys going through specifically our therapeutic community or a drug treatment program, and then we have one for women with all of those programs as well. We don't house the genders together because we don't want no jail babies. Although that doesn't really stop them. Did I tell you about the couple? Like they went out to work and then went into a Krispy Kreme restroom and just fucked there.
Wow. Definitely one of the lows for humanity.
Yeah, like the manager caught him and threw him out because I guess he was pissed because like only like Krispy Kreme staff get to put in the creamy filling. So work release, like these people are still in the custody of the jail and the sheriff's department, but we house them because it's a lot easier for us to get them in and out of the facility to like go to their jobs or go to their appointments in the community or we have more mental health treatment staff on site if that's a service that they require. Our facility has a lot more ease of access for volunteers and different like treatment staff coming and going and getting them out there into the community to look for jobs or go to work or whatever. We have our own transportation service that takes them there to make sure they get there on time. We also require them to pay a percentage of whatever it is they're making back into the program, so they're sort of like earning their keep. What they're paying us doesn't like cover everything. Like we're not like slumlords. It's like $100 a month or whatever the hell it is. So it's not like this huge burden we're putting back on them. We're not treating them like indentured servants of
Right.
like the county, but it gives them like this sense of responsibility, something that they need to give back to for whatever it is that they're getting. And then we have what are called problem solving beds. Basically, if you're on house arrest but you don't have a house to be arrested to, we'll give you a place to sleep and help you find a place to live, help you get a job so that you can successfully complete whatever it was that the court ordered you to do. Because I don't expect like your PO to show up under a bridge like, hey, you still got your ankle monitor on there, Jack? Then we have TC, and like these are people who are like a bit harder to work with. Addiction issues and a lot of like the street mentality are very hard to break through and get them to start considering the other people around them, because they have a lot of selfish behaviors and a lot of selfish drives. I have seen people be successful, but they're also like ones who are a lot harder to interact with because we have what's called positive behavioral support, meaning that we tend to approach this group of people as in we are going to recognize positive behaviors and we're going to reward those, and we're going to try to ignore the negative ones because they react to punishment very adversely. So if like we see them doing something they're not supposed to and we give them like issue them a sanction or give them like a timeout or whatever equivalent for adults that there are, then they're going to probably like reject the program and the facility as a whole, that they don't need to listen at all, and they're going to be very resistant to anything else that we want to tell them after that. So we've been trying something else for a couple years, and I've seen some people be successful, and I've seen some other people just take advantage of that. Like, oh, there's no consequences for my behavior. Well, fuck yeah, I'm going to do whatever I want. And like, oh God, you're ruining this for everybody.
These people are like taking advantage of the fact that it's more of a reward than punishment based system. What are some examples of
Yeah.
that?
They begin to like have no fear. So like little rules like you need to be wearing shoes outside your room. I'm not gonna like dive tackle them and force shoes on their feet. Like if they don't want to do that, I'm like, come on, man, please put your shoes on. Like, because I can't have you walking around here without it. That's a safety hazard. And if they want to tell me no, like not a lot I'm gonna be able to do about it. They know that minor stuff that they can kind of do whatever they want with. They get like this false sense of confidence about breaking some of the bigger stuff. Like, I'm going to bring in K2. And if you're not familiar with what K2 is, congratulations, you good little Christian boy and girl. K2 is synthetic marijuana, and that shit will fuck you up in ways that you could not have even imagined or foresaw.
New Zealand has a huge synthetics problem. My friend lives there and he talks about how it like almost destroyed his community.
If you have the option, just smoke legal weed. You're hearing this from somebody in the correction system. Please just smoke legal, real weed.
Yeah.
Don't smoke synthetic marijuana. Like, the only reason these people want to smoke synthetic marijuana is because it doesn't show up on drug tests. So, like, they will get randomly drug tested. If they had smoked regular weed, it's going to show up and they're probably going back to jail. So they'll try the synthetic shit, but the synthetic shit can give you a psychotic break. It can make you have a seizure. I've seen people struggle to breathe. You might try harming somebody or harming yourself while you're under its influence.
Is it addictive? Like chemically addictive? Is that what's causing it? Or is there something else to it that makes them want it?
I think it's just the fact that they want to get high and they don't want consequences for it because it doesn't show up on the drug tests. As soon as they're out, I don't think they smoke it. I think they go back to just the regular weed and the drinking. You know, and if you're being responsible with those substances, I could give less of a shit. Like, you're hearing this from somebody who's worked in corrections for almost 10 years. I could give less of a shit as long as you're being responsible with that stuff. We had a guy come back who smuggled in K2 up his asshole, and he went in the bathroom, smoked it up. He went fucking bonkers. He started just wandering around, talking loudly to himself, and like we approached him like, hey man, what's going on? You okay? And then he saw us in front of him like, oh shit, I've been busted. I gotta cheese it. So he starts like running out of the building. He gets out of building 4, our male housing area, gets to the access road. He's about to approach the other building and then collapses, vomits all over himself. So we flip him over. We check his vitals. He's still good. We call the nurses over. We call the ambulance. We make sure we don't need to do CPR, and then we get him back to being responsive. And he kind of like comes out of it a little bit like and I'm right over him like, you smoke that stuff again, man? You smoking that stuff? And he's like, no, I smoking nothing. And I'm like, okay, so what's with all this vomit here? You're telling me you didn't smoke nothing and you puked all over yourself? And he looks down at his shirt and he looks back up at me and says, that's not mine.
Nice.
Ballsiest fucking lie I've heard in a long time. Getting acclimated to this job took a while because I came from a jail where we go hands-on with people on a regular basis. And we have fights, to a place where fights are very, very rare. So I had to dial back my confrontationalism a lot, and I had to learn to be like a lot more kinder and gentler with everything, like my general mannerisms, how I talk to people. Because a lot of people, like all my new coworkers, thought that I wouldn't last too long since I came from a place who's notorious for abusing people, like just straight up doing shady shit 24/7. To here, they thought that I wouldn't last, that I'd fuck up, I'd do something I wasn't supposed to, and I'd get the boot. They expected me to come in and punch one of their clients in the face. Like,
Yeah.
that's what they expected. And within my first 6 months, like there, like I had never experienced an emergency situation to where we had to restrain anybody or we had anybody actively trying to fight us. And then one day, like I'm working our intake lobby and this kid comes back from, so we sent him off to a mental health treatment facility for a while because he was really struggling and we were not equipped to assist him. So he went there to get like stabilized again and get on the right meds, and then he was going to come back. He was going to come back a little sooner, but the first time he tried coming back, his mom was driving him back and they got into an argument on the highway, and he just left the car like on the highway going 50 miles an hour. He just opened the door and jumped out. So he had to go to the hospital for a bit, and then when he came back from that, he came back to my facility. And a part of you returning from a hospital is I have to give you a UA. It's a urinalysis. It's a piss test for drugs, because I need to know what you've been taking at the hospital, because we might not give it to you there. We have a nurses station and we do med pass, but we won't give you like opioids or anything like Adderall or Ritalin. We can't give it out because people will abuse those. Your roommate will try to buy them off of you and they'll crush it up and snort it.
Wow, so even
And
people that have like prescriptions can't take that.
yeah, they have to find an alternative.
Wow, okay, because I
Uh,
take Vyvanse, which is chemically similar to like Adderall and Ritalin. If I don't take Vyvanse in the morning, I feel like a zombie all day. Keeps them tranquilized, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of a trade-off. Like we do our best. We understand that people need certain things to function. So anyway, so this kid comes back. I have to give him a UA. He says, "Well, I don't have to go to the bathroom," and I'm like, "That's okay. There's a drinking fountain right there. I suggest you try drinking some water. I can't have you leave my little lobby and go back to your housing unit until I get that UA. I can get you coffee if you want. I'll make sure that you're getting food down here, however long it takes. But I can't have you leave until you get the UA." And at first he's like, "Okay," and then like 20 minutes later, he's like, "Man, I want to leave," and I'm like, "Do you have to use the bathroom?" "Well, no." "I'm sorry, man, but I can't give you permission to leave." And then he starts like getting pissed off, and I have other people coming back from work, so I'm processing them, and I'm pat searching a guy, and then this kid he's like just sitting on the bench, and he looks over at me, and then he tells me, "Why don't you pull that dead possum out of your ass?" And I'm like, "What the fuck did I just hear?" He's got this blank fucking stare at me, and I've become all too familiar with this stare from working at the jail, working with like people who are like severe mental health. They're unpredictable, they're unmedicated, they're not receiving the proper treatment at that point, and they're stressed, they're pissed off. Their only solution to this in their mind is to fight. I send the guy I'm searching out of the room, and I radio for, like, "Please respond to this area because this kid's about to fight me." This is such a rare thing to hear over the radio at this facility, so I get everybody and their mom show up quickly. Like, they're all excited, like, "Oh fuck, what's going on? What's this? What's this? What's this? This is all new." It's like Jack Skellington finding Christmas Town. "What's this? What's this?" He's a little scrawny kid. I could totally take him. But it wasn't the fact that I could handle it myself. It's the fact that I wanted other people there so I wouldn't have to punch him, so that I would have other people to more safely restrain him. And I wanted other people there for accountability reasons, because if I end up like knocking this kid flat, the administrators are going to like, "Why didn't you call for a backup?" Like, because I didn't need it, so call for backup so you have other people there who can hold you accountable for your behavior. Because if you know you have like 6 different witnesses, you're going to like behave a lot better. So my supervisor shows up and he looks at me like, "Okay, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Okay, he's no longer listening to me, and he's about to fight me." So he turns to the kid like, "Okay, so what's going on today?" And the kid just immediately stands up, shoves him, and then goes to clock him in the side of the face. big mistake. My supervisor used to run a juvenile facility. He's been in corrections like almost as long as I've been alive at this point. So he grabs an arm, I'm grabbing an arm. Our giant like 6'2" property officer is behind him. He grabs this kid's feet from out from under him, and we're holding him there, and he's like Superman, like flying at this point. And I'm waiting for the part where we all go to the ground at the same point, but no, we gently lower his ass to the ground. Like we don't like drop him to face plant, and I'm like, well, this is nice. This is a nice change of pace as we're all going to the ground. And he's screaming at me, like telling me, like just because you have problems with your wife at home doesn't mean you get to be a dick. I'm like, dude, I don't even have a wife. Like, I don't know what the fuck. Like, there's some sort of narrative that is formed in his mind about like why I wouldn't let him leave, and it had nothing to do with the fact that he wouldn't piss into a cup.
Because he's the one who should be psychoanalyzing right now. Absolutely.
Yeah. Like, apparently because I'm having marital problems with my imaginary wife at home, that means I have to take it out at him. So the sheriffs show up to take him out because he's just assaulted staff, so he needs to go back to jail. And they say, okay, man, we're going to let you up if you're going to behave. And he's like struggling, and he's still struggling around. He's not like answering. I'm like, are you going to behave? And he's not answering. He's still like wriggling around and trying to fight. And they're like, my name's Officer Smith. What's your name? And then the kid like looks at him and says, my name is Pig Fucker.
Some tact would be nice. At least go for a good shot, you know? Like, that's not even funny.
No, it's not even inventive at all. Like no effort was spent on this.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, he's still like 18 years old. He's got some time to, build his repertoire of good cop quips to use like in his career. Then they're like, okay, so are you going to behave? And then he's like, oh, I'll behave. And then they like immediately start letting him up like in hell. And then he starts trying to kick one of them. Yeah. Then they immediately like plant him on a bench. And then like Officer Smith looks at his friend, like Officer Dave or whatever the fuck his name was. And he says, get me the burrito. And I'm like, what the fuck is the burrito? He brings back these two giant, like, tough as nails fabric material Velcro wraps, and they wrap his ass up like a burrito to keep him from assaulting.
Ultra handcuffs, Jesus Christ.
I guess they thought that he would pull against those too much and they would cut his wrists.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to do that, so he's like, get me the burrito. Like, they burrito wrap his ass, and they start taking him out to the car, and he spits on like another coworker of mine on his way out. I'm like, okay, well, that's just more charges there, guy.
Do people not realize that when you're an 18-year-old, you can't just YOLO your life away in one day? No, that's like an 85-year-old on his last like bank robbery kind of thing to do. You don't do that shit when you're an 18-year-old who's got like misdemeanor charges.
That's like some Walter White shit you're gonna do. Like, you have a year to live. Like, go ahead. Like, break bad. After all was said and done, I started getting worried because I'm like, fuck, they're gonna think that I instigated a fight with this kid. It just never happened. We all got interviewed as like a debriefing thing to talk about what happened, and I like 0 people blamed me at all. Like, I didn't hear anybody like, okay, so what were you saying to him? Like, well, we checked the camera and it doesn't appear that you were being aggressive or instigating or threatening at all, so good job. And I'm like, thank you for telling me I did the bare minimum.
Because you were still kind of used to the idea of man beat the shit out of another dude kind of style. You still had some of that mindset built in, although you weren't acting on it, thankfully. Like, you managed to survive not doing that, but...
Yeah. So that was my first fight at my new job, and it went very well, all things considered. Like, we didn't beat this kid unconscious. Nobody left an amount of blood on the floor anywhere. That went about as well as anybody could have hoped for. And I'm like, finally, this is a good place to work. I'm not going to be expected to, cover for somebody doing some shady shit, because like one of their priorities is to report the shady shit.
Right.
Like, cool. So this is back when I worked at the jail. And I was managing a pod. It was like the middle of the day, and they were getting really loud. Like, I couldn't hear myself think loud. I announced to the room that they need to lower their voices, and they do for about 5 minutes. And like, most of them are just around, like, they're just talking to each other, or they're like playing cards at a table. Some of them are on the phone, and they were getting like a little upset because they couldn't like hear their baby mama bitch at them like like at the level that they were used to because everybody else was really loud. And then I had one guy, he was just there for just a really long time. Like as long as I had been working there, this guy had been there, and he was just sitting down in the day room watching TV quietly to himself, not bothering anybody. And I always knew him as like a pretty good guy. Like he was a very openly gay man, like an older gentleman. He was a model inmate. And then like everybody else starts getting super, super fucking loud again. And then I'm like, guys, we need to lower our voices. If we can't do that, I'm shutting down the day room. The TV's going off and the phones are going off. We're done. If we can't use our inside voices. I'm like, why am I running a freaking daycare for all these like grown ass men? Like that's something you say to a kindergarten class. My guy who's just sitting there watching TV, he gets up and he says to the room, if y'all motherfuckers make me miss my show, I'm gonna start naming every single one of you in here I've given a sloppy to. And they all shut the fuck up. Like you could hear a mouse fart, like kind of thing. Like, I have never seen a jailhouse room get so quiet.
Oh my god, that shit actually happens. It sounds like something out of a movie.
He came up later to me and said, "Sir, I'm sorry you had to hear me say that." And I'm like, "No, you do you. It worked."
So, like, it's got to be quite a few of them because that means the ones leading the charge.
No, like everybody in there, like I could see like the whites of their eyes, like, oh no. I don't remember what he was there for. Like I never bothered to look it up because I never had a problem with him. Usually I'll look that up if they are having issues, like if they have issues with like following staff directives, or if they're like hiding shit or trying to manipulate. I'll look at their case history to get a better idea about who I'm dealing with so I can have a game plan in the future, and that's when I'll look up their charges. But typically I try not to look up their charges because if I see certain charges like sex crimes against children or like domestic abuse or murder, I'm going to come into situations with a mentality that is not going to be helpful for de-escalating or diffusing situations.
That is incredibly insightful that you're able to recognize that knowing why these people are so awful and why they're in the position they're in can actually like impact your ability to do your work. That's some very strong self-control right there. Wow. At that place, nobody would have like stopped you from beating the shit out of a child endangerer, you know? Like,
yeah, no, none at all. They would have joined in.
But you did your job the way that it's supposed to be done, and you actually served justice as constructively as you can in a place like that.
The wacky candy man. Okay, so this happened last week. So, like, I had mentioned in my video that sometimes I have people that I had as inmates over at the last jail at my current facility. I had one show up. This is a guy who struggles with mental health, and he has trouble dealing with stressful situations, and he also has boundary issues. Like, he would hit on female staff and nurses and say really inappropriate, fucked up things. And he would also threaten staff when he wouldn't get his way, and he didn't know how to navigate situations or interpersonal conflict constructively. He would just go straight for the "I'm gonna fucking kill you." Like, dude, I just said lunch was gonna be late. Just
that bad? Like, that was how hair trigger he was?
Yeah, he's back at my current facility, and like he's obviously more medicated because he's not like walking around like in his own little world as so much. And I can have a conversation with him, and I can help him with things like he's trying to get done or doesn't understand about the new facility, and that's stressful. But he's wanting help. Like, he knows to ask for help, and he knows to like take the direction I give him. Like, okay, so here's how you get this accomplished. Like, here's how you start looking for jobs, and here's how like the services we have, and here's who you talk to. And he's like, cool. And he's like, can I call my brother? And I'm like, yes. So I know he just got there. He doesn't have any money for the payphone, so I let him use my desk phone. Like, all right, we're gonna, because that, like, we have two desk phones. Like, one is specifically for people without money to call their families and their lawyer and ask for things. So I dial the number for him, and I give him the phone, and I'm like, all right, so let me know when you're finished. And I go back in the control station. I'm trying to keep track of people who are at their jobs to make sure they didn't, fuck off their job and go to Krispy Kreme. And he's talking to his brother about like how he doesn't have any money, and his brother obviously doesn't have any money to give him. And he's like, no, bro, you need to get a hold of Jam Jam or whatever, because that dude still owes me. And I start listening his side of the conversation, and he's like, yeah, I gave that motherfucker some wacky candy.
It's not the word he
and
used in the DM that he sent me, by the
no,
way. We're using that
that's
for
not.
YouTube reasons.
Think blue wacky candy.
Yeah. The funny Walter White substance.
Like he still owes me for that, and that motherfucker ain't paying me back yet. He's got to get me my money, and he tried to give me back the candy, but I was like, I don't want that. I want the money, motherfucker. And he's like once I get that, then I'm straight.
I'm
and
imagining
I'm like, dude,
him saying that with the
yeah.
actual word, just straight up.
He used the actual word, like he didn't use a street name for it, like he used the word. And I'm like, dude, I am standing right here. Like what kind of unspoken bond do you think we have to where you are comfortable openly admitting to your deals like that in front of me? And I was like I know I wasn't horrible to you at the last jail, but like was like going through that together, do we have some sort of like Vietnam veteran bond now that we went through the shit that I was amazed. That was the first time I've ever had anybody like that nonchalant about their illicit activities.
Yeah. I'm trying to imagine what like mental process got him from point A of I am dealing drugs to point B of yeah, I'm just chilling with the homies, even though they're being paid to deal with me and are able to sedate me in the event that I become violent. Like, what gets you from A to B there?
I don't know. Yeah, I call up my boss and I'm like, hey, he's admitting to candy deals, like right in front of me. What do I do about it? And they're like, well, he's a problem-solving bed, so like technically, there's nothing we can really do to him since he's like sort of in our custody, but he's technically not. He's just homeless. Just write an informational report. just okay, like if this ever comes up later, like if he gets busted for wacky candy deals, I might be hauled into court to like testify.
Yeah. Compared to your average day, give me a multiplier on how much crazier that was.
So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the Chinese prime minister is using his penis as a radio transmitter to send me lesbian meatloaf recipes. To 1 is I'm a sane human being. That was at about a 5.
Okay, so you've seen worse.
Yeah, I've seen worse.
Okay. Wheelchair rodeo inmate gets revenge on younger inmate by bullying him. These sound like Florida Man titles. That's what they sound like.
They do sound like Florida Man. Okay, so he wasn't bullying the kid. The kid was bullying him. So this is back at the last jail. Okay, this was in that same pod that I was talking to you about the sloppy man. At one point we had an inmate there. It didn't have any legs. Just no legs. Just not even he didn't even have prosthetics. Just these little nubs, and he was in a wheelchair. He was an older guy. I don't even know why he was there. He's one of those guys that keeps to himself, keeps his room clean. He's just there to do his time and then just get back out and move on with his life, and I respect that. And then one day we get this big kid, like this 6'2", 6'3", maybe 280, 290, 300-pound kid, 19 years old. He is brought up to live in this pod, and this pod is supposed to be low security. Like, these guys aren't there for anything violent. These guys haven't had, like, a huge disciplinary record, so they get, like, a lot, like, they get more room, they get a better TV, they get, like, better board games, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like, all the pieces are there.
What's the limit on, like, things that could potentially be used as weapons? Like, are you allowed to have a toothbrush?
Yeah, they can have a toothbrush. They're like little like hotel size toothbrushes.
Like if you were trying to stab someone, like, you have to be like,
yeah, you have to like really get it in there.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
This kid was never supposed to have been brought to the pod. Rumor was he was the nephew of one of our case managers, and she didn't want to put him in with like the big scary tough guy criminals.
Oh.
Even though he was a big scary tough guy criminal. He was there for assaulting people, and they put him in the low security around the guys who were just trying to make it through the day and not ruffle any feathers. So this kid takes control of the TV. Like, the wheelchair guy is sitting there, he's just watching his program, and the kid comes over, rips the remote out of his hand and shoves him away, and then sits down and starts watching TV. And the wheelchair guy, he just kind of like wheels himself away for a little bit. He gives it 10 minutes. He's just staring at the kid. And then he like wheels himself right behind the kid. And then with one arm, wraps it around his neck and squeezes and latches on. And with the other arm, punching him in the face. So this kid stands up, and the wheelchair man goes with him. And so this kid starts trying to throw him off, and this legless man starts flopping around, like still holding on for dear life, still punching him in the face, not letting go. It's like watching a freaking dude ride a bull.
how did this end? Did Legless Man
It
survive?
Oh yeah, Legless Man survived. I mean, eventually his arm got too tired and he was thrown off and thrown like a little ragdoll potato across the room. And the kid rushes over to start assaulting him. And this was the point where all of my staff members had shown up and we were able to stop the kid from, curb stomping this legless old man. It's like the kid was fine. The amount of punishment he got was not proportionate at all to what he was about to do to that man.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one of the wildest things I've ever seen.
I used a broken door lock to screw with a client. I fake mind powers to make a point about religion. Please.
I've said on my video that I am an atheist, and what that means is that I am not convinced of the existence of any God. In America, that usually means like you hate Christianity. Like, no, I don't. I'm not convinced by it. And not only am I not convinced by Christianity, I'm not convinced by, Islam.
No one's given a good enough offer yet.
like-
No one's given a good enough
Yeah,
point.
no, but I don't believe in Hinduism or Thor or Zeus or any of those things because I just haven't been convinced of their existence. I try to like keep that to myself unless it comes up or unless if somebody asks me. And of course, if I'm at work, like I'm at my current job, I have to be respectful of other people's beliefs. Like so, we have like church group events, like we have volunteers show up, and anybody who like is there who's like on a Sunday who wants to go to Bible study or is a Christian who wants to attend that service, that is something that is offered and they can go. And I had one of those kids after that event. I was sort of supervising that area for a little bit because as soon as they left the dining room that they were using, I had to run a meal period. So I was waiting for them to leave, and he comes up to me and he was some new kid and he starts introducing himself to me and he's like, "Hi, my name's Jake." I'm like, "Hi, Jake. How are you doing?" Like, "Yo, I'm all right. I'm just trying to get right with the Lord again. Be a good Christian boy." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I hope that works for you, Jake." Because usually when he says something like that, he's used to hearing like, "Oh, God bless you, son," or something like that. But well, that's not me because I don't believe in that, so I'm not going to tell you that. So he's like, "Well, you believe in God, right?" And I'm like, "Nah." And he immediately like points at me like, "Oh, you're going to hell." And I'm like, "Okay." Like I can't like get offended by this or like I can't like contradict him. Like if I wanted to state my own beliefs, I'm like, "All right then."
That's what's great about atheism. You can say literally anything you want about your
Yeah.
God. All I will think is that you're
Yeah.
being a tad goofy.
So the next day, so I'm working his housing building and I'm working the front desk. It's sort of like a security checkpoint thing. We give them smoke breaks outside. We have little lockers down there in the lobby. They can keep their cigarettes and lighters and they can smoke outside at certain times. And a big part of my day working the front desk of that building is like just doing searches to make sure they put them back up, or if they're coming back from work, I make sure to give them a pat search to make sure they didn't like accidentally bring a box cutter in from work, or if they're trying to sneak in anything that we don't allow, like I'll try to catch that unless they have it up their ass, and that's a different story. I'm not going up there. So we have like two doors, like one's going upstairs to a housing unit and the other one just stays on this floor and that's a separate housing unit. But one of those doors locks broke and the door can be freely opened, and just until we get maintenance to come and fix it, like we're just going to have to deal with that and just keep an eye on the door and make sure who's coming and going. But nobody else knows this. So this kid comes back in from outside and he's waiting at the door for me to like push the button or use my key card on the key card reader to, disengage the electronic lock. And I'm not doing any of this. And he's just kind of staring at me and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's right. He doesn't know that the door can be just opened." So to fuck with him, I sort of like put one hand to my mind and I reach out with my other one like frickin' L from Stranger Things and I go, "Open the door, just open it, I got it." And he's like, "What the fuck are you doing? Just open the door, I got it." And he like puts it on the handle and he opens it and he has this like shocked look in his face like and he's like, "What the fuck's going on?" And I'm like, "The lock's just busted, dude. That's how your religion started."
Oh my god, that's so mean. Scared kid who confessed to assisting in a murder, who later let go to... Oh, this sounds interesting. This is like when someone confesses because their lawyer tells them it's their best shot, huh?
You would think like that's like a lot of like people who will like plead guilty to a crime or like because their lawyer was like, dude, I don't like the evidence they have against you, like, and they're like adamant that they didn't do it, and their attorneys like, dude, like I will take that to court and I will say that you didn't do it, but I do not like our chances of winning because of the evidence they have against you, and they'll accept a plea. And that's how most like people who don't want to plead guilty will plead guilty. That is not what happened in this situation. So years ago, there was this bizarre story on the news about some woman who was found dead in a vehicle, and the police were investigating. I guess she had like a bag around her head. Like they were investigating whether or not like this was a homicide, if this person had decided to take their own life. They didn't know, but I saw the news story, and that night I have this kid who's brought in who is flipping the fuck out. He's like 19, something like he's like a little taller than me. He's got like a lanky build. We have him in like a holding cell on our second floor where we keep all like the psychiatric people. I guess he may have been seeing a nurse or something and he starts freaking out like he doesn't want to be there anymore. He had confessed to the police that him, the woman's husband, and like another friend had murdered her and like put a bag over her head and like left her in a car to make it look like a suicide. Like he told the police that they were part of some kind of weird passionate hugging cult. I don't know if I can say the S word. He said that like they had killed her at the direction of her husband, and police obviously like brought him into jail after interviewing him. I don't know why he said all that, like unless like you're okay. So I don't know why anybody would say that to police unless it's true.
Right.
Like that is a bizarre story to tell the just
was
to
it a
tell the police on a
flex?
whim. I don't know, but he for some reason he told the police that's what was going on, and then like he gets to jail, and then he wants to recant his confession. He wants to walk that back because he doesn't like being there, and he's really fidgety. He's not holding still. He's walking around. He's all hyper and agitated. I'm like, dude, you need to calm down. He's like, no, I need to go home. I need to get out of here. And he starts walking up on me, like trying to get out of the holding cell. And I'm like, if I let him out of this holding cell, I have no idea where he's going to go or what he's going to get into because the rest of this place isn't secure. So I frickin' bear hug him. You are not escaping. Like he's doing that whole like cry screaming thing, just sitting there spooning on the ground. Like, dude, calm down. Like, my staff members get in there and they cuff him up, and I'm like, dude, like you can ask to speak with a detective tomorrow, but right now you just need to calm down. We'll get you a cell away from everybody. Chill. It came out later that like so they let him go. Because they determined that he had a false confession. I guess he had a bunch of like mental health issues, and he had this delusion in his mind because like what he was telling the police just didn't match up with what the evidence was. She had just decided to end her life. It was how it was. And but oddly enough, that story though of the kid confessing that like the woman's husband had been involved in her death followed him because he moved out of the area and he went down to Texas to be a school teacher, and he was being successful there for like his first school year. I guess people really liked him down there, but they found out like what was going on, what had happened back in my town before he moved down there, and he was terminated. That was one of like the more bizarre things that stand out because I've never heard of anybody like having a delusion about a passionate hugging cult involving in a murder, and you're in jail because you just decided on a whim to tell the police that. And I guess I'm sure the police did their due diligence in checking it out before deciding to let him go.
Yeah, that's just like, did he ever get
Yeah.
reinstated or?
Like the husband, like
Yeah.
the teacher guy? No.
That's
as far as
so
I know, no.
sad.
He might have, but I have not heard about it. Like I don't know how this man's doing right now.
That's so sad. I mean, to lose everything like that, to lose the person you love and then have that happen, that's ugh.
Yeah.
Do prison guards have good vacation programs?
Depends. At my last job, I got maybe 10 vacation days a year, maybe 15. I don't quite remember. It wasn't that impressive. Currently, at the facility that I work at now, that's more focused to rehab, and it's actually, more well funded. Like, it's not perfectly funded, but it's better. I get about 5.5 right now vacation hours a paycheck. So every 2 weeks, I get like 5 point whatever hours, and those accumulate throughout the year. And I also get three, I guess, what they call floating holidays at the beginning of each year. There's like, hey, 3 free vacation days. Here you go. You use them before the end of the year, or they're gone. I'm like, cool. So I usually like use them around my birthday, or like a trip that I want, or if there's a trip that I want to go to that is around my birthday. And I also get bereavement leave, a week and a half off work if I have a relative pass away. Like 2 months ago, my mother died to cancer, and I was able to use bereavement leave to attend the funeral and process my grief, and that was nice. I feel like I'm pretty well taken care of now, but there are other facilities that really couldn't give two shits, or even if like they did give you vacation days, they won't approve them because of just how low their staffing is, or if somebody else has already taken that day off, like we're at our limit, like two of you already requested that day off, I can't send you on there, so you got to work, like, but I have to use my vacation days. Like, well, tough shit, pick a different day, like, but I don't need that day off, like, tough shit.
I maliciously comply with the property office manager and win.
Okay, yeah. So my current job, a lot of the guys who will come back from like work or whatever will come back with things that aren't technically allowed at my facility, but they're not illegal. If they have like a multi-tool or like a box cutter that they use for work, well, we can't allow that here because that's a potential weapon. If they get into an argument about their roommate or with their roommate about something, I don't want anybody like grabbing it real quick and cutting somebody up. And another thing is foodstuffs. We don't allow outside food or drink because I don't know what else is in there. That stuff needs to be thrown away. That's how I was taught. Like if they come back with like perishable goods, like I don't have a fridge to keep their stuff in, so I need to throw it away. So this guy comes back from his job because like his job was throwing out, like they make like gas station like burgers and burritos, like those plastic wrap crappy things that you buy on a road trip. So he came back with a bunch of frozen of those things in a bag, and I'm like, okay, well, you can't have these here. And he's like, well, my job was throwing them out. I'm like, okay, well, now I have to throw them out. I'm sorry. And I took them to a dumpster and I threw them away. And I thought, okay, well, it's another job done. But the next day I come in and I have emails from the lady who, like, her job title is policy compliance manager. And she says, did you throw away a client's property? And I'm like, no, I didn't throw away property. I'd never do that. And like, well, I have you on camera going to a dumpster with this bag. And I'm like, I threw out food that like your policy says I'm supposed to. And she's like, okay, well, you need to meet with this client and you need to financially reimburse them. And I'm like, no, I don't. You're the policy compliance manager. Your policy says perishable goods will be thrown away. And she said her property officers, her property staff are the ones who throw things away. There is a documentation process. It's their job to throw away what needs to be thrown away. It's their job to determine what needs to be thrown away. Your job is to put it in a bag, put a label on the bag with the person's name, and send it to my property office. And I'm like, even perishable goods? And she put in the email, like, yes, everything. She underlined the word everything in her email gets sent to property. And I'm like, cool. So I know like that particular client time served the day after, and I went on my weekend, so I never got with him for financial reimbursement. So I never actually had to do what she said. And then I just kind of waited for like 2 weeks. Then this client came back in from work with a bag lunch. Like we give them bag lunches with like sandwiches, chips, and cookies so they have something to eat while they go to work if they can't feed themselves. And he came back with like a half-eaten bag lunch. Like everything had been opened. Bread on the sandwich was starting to go stale. The cheese had clearly had a big bite mark taken out of it and all this other shit. Like clearly something that needs to be thrown away. But I remembered my email. Everything goes to property. So I bagged it up, I labeled it with his name, and I sent it to property. And the next day I get an email from her, not only sent to me, but sent to all of administration and all of my supervisors saying, I don't know if you're just being petty or you are just not getting it, which is the nice way of calling me stupid. When you sent me like this half-eaten bag lunch, and I'm like, okay, hold up there, lady. And I quoted her email and I sent it back to even more supervisors when I responded, you told me everything goes to property. And when I asked you, do perishable foods go back there? You said, yes. yes, everything. And then dead silence from her. Then I got talked to by my supervisor. He said the director of the facility went over to her desk and told her she is not allowed to get angry at you for doing what she said.
Hell
Like,
yeah.
I actually posted that story to Reddit's malicious compliance, and I got like 1,000 hits.
That's awesome. The inmate the cops brought in who was wearing a chicken suit costume.
Okay, so does anybody here know who Tech9 is? He's a famous rapper, and whenever he comes to town, everybody goes balls to the walls, like fucking ballistic. The day after his concert, police bring in this man wearing a full body chicken suit costume. And I'm working the intake. This is at the jail. It's not my current job. And I'm like, what fresh level of hell is this that I'm walking into here? And the cops tell me like he didn't have any clothes underneath, like he's completely naked. Otherwise, we would have taken the suit from him. He had gone to the Tech9 concert, got fucking blitzed out of his mind on substances, and spent the next day wandering around the city. Like he would go into like restaurant bars, be very bothersome to people. Like he tried stealing this person's order of chicken wings or something, wearing a chicken suit. Like I guess he thought that was a funny thing to do, stealing chicken wings. I don't know. It's like a double chicken thing. When the cops were called, he fled from the bar and to some business that had closed down for the night and broke into that trying to escape from them, like still all wearing the chicken suit. And he gets brought in. I'm like, okay, let's start with some basic questions, sir. What is your name? And he's like not wanting to answer me. I'm like, dude, I just need a name. And then he decides to give me his rapper name. Would anybody like to guess what his rapper name is? He straight up tells me that his name is Click Clack Cluck Cluck.
How do you handle that? What do you do? What does the human mind do when approached with a situation as magnifloriously stupid as that?
Just wrote it down. That's Click Clack Cluck Cluck. Until we confirmed what his real identity was, and then we put that in the system, and I put it under his file notes, alias Click Clack Cluck Cluck.
That is in records somewhere in the world.
That's in record. If he ever gets pulled over again and the cops like run his ID, like, sir, are you John Click Clack Cluck Cluck Smith? I've searched a lot of things in my years working in corrections. Like only once have I ever searched a chicken suit. He had been wearing it for over a day, like in there completely naked. That was the rankest thing I have ever had to search. Like if you've ever like heard horror stories from like furry conventions of like people who aren't hygienic and they they get this funk going on in their bodysuit, like that's how I imagine that's what that is.
Have you heard anything of Click Clack Cluck Cluck since then?
No, but I did run into Tech9.
Really?
He had no words for the story of one of his fans' nights after his concert.
Oh, you told him about it?
I was sitting behind him in an airplane. I was going to California to passionately hug a goth girl I met online. And I was sitting behind him in the airplane.
How I got my old apartment to fix my air conditioner by wearing a Batman onesie?
This has nothing to do with jail. Nothing to do with my job at all. Back when I did work at the jail, I was being paid so little that I had to live in like a crappy fucking slumlord apartment that was not well taken care of. Basically providing as little service as possible because for what they're charging. It was, middle of summer. My air conditioning broke. It was like 95 degrees in my apartment consistently, and I had been putting in work orders in their system and nothing had been getting done about it. Like I would call them, when you come in to fix the thing, like they're coming to fix it today, and then I waited all day and they show up. So the next day I'm just tired of these people, and so I know that they have air conditioning in their office. So I decided, like, okay, well, you're going to provide me a livable housing unit with air conditioning, and I need to get some sleep. So I put on my Batman onesie pajamas that a friend bought me as a joke for Christmas. I walked all the way to their office with my fucking body pillow, and I can send you a photo of this, because like, they also sent me a Harley Quinn body pillow case. And so I walked in there like, what the hell is going on? Like, it's July. Like, it is way too early for Halloween. What is going on here? And I'm like, yeah, I live here now. What? I sleep here now. Like, no, you have to leave. Like, no, I rent that apartment and you haven't fixed my AC and that is unlivable and I live here now.
What a power move.
Then like the office lady was like, I'm gonna get a hold of maintenance, and then she starts yelling for this guy Enrique to come in, and Enrique walks in and she's like, it says here on this work order that you fixed this guy's AC. And I'm like, no, he didn't. And he's like, I don't remember. Well, it says here on the work order that you showed up at the apartment and then you fixed the AC. I'm like, oh, he did not. He certainly did not. Enrique, why are you telling these lies on me? And he's like, I'm gonna go over there right now and fix it. Like, yeah, you sure are. It broke the following year. I ended up moving out under what's called material noncompliance. If the apartment is unlivable and they're not providing a remedy within a certain time period, I get to break lease without having to pay any sort of fee legally, and I get to move out. So that's what I ended up doing. I know it's a law in my state. I don't know if it's a law in every state. I know other states have much like more favorable laws like for tenants when it comes to what your rights are for renting.
Right.
My state does not. Like that was like the one move I had.
Taking the highway shooter to the hospital, he becomes scared that he confessed while he was under anesthesia.
Years ago, there was a guy who was infamous for like about 2 or 3 months because what he would do is he would get on the highway and he would just shoot randomly into cars. Like that was his whole thing. He never killed anybody, but he definitely hit some people. He has caused serious bodily injury. He's caused property damage. He definitely could have killed somebody. I still have no idea why he was doing it. He was eventually caught and he was brought to my jail. Since he was a high profile case, he had to be segregated because you could always have another inmate looking for their 15 minutes of fame by beating up somebody who was on the news. He was in a segregation module, so we have like rows of different cells of people who are on segregation, and they come out one at a time for like their hour or two out of their cell a day to use the phone, shower, exercise, whatever. And then they go back, and then as soon as they're in their cell and the door is secure, the next one comes out. Somebody screwed up royally, and they let him out at the same time as this other guy who was famous for killing 5 people with a shotgun. They got into a fight because I guess they spent most of their time in their cell like talking smack to each other as a way to pass the time. Suddenly, they're both, in front of each other for the first time. They didn't actually think that was going to happen, so they have to fight. And the highway shooter gets his ankle snapped in half.
Oh,
Like clean break. So I had to take him to the hospital because he's such a high profile case. You had to send 2 officers. I was given a firearm. Part of my duty is if he poses a threat to somebody else, I may have to shoot him. Or if somebody comes in wanting revenge on him, I may have to shoot them. Or if somebody comes in wanting to break him out, I may have to shoot them. I don't know. And then another officer does not have a firearm, and it's his job to handle all of the mechanical restraints, the handcuffs, the leg shackles, because he's going to be in close proximity to the inmate, and he doesn't have a firearm for them to try to grab and use against anybody, and I'm not supposed to get that close to him, so he doesn't try to gun grab me. So I get to the hospital, and the security officer for that hospital comes over to me like, why does this guy need so much security detail? And I'm like, that's the highway shooter. And he doesn't believe me, and then he goes and Googles it, and he's like, oh shit, and I shouldn't have told him this, because then he picks up the phone like, guess who we got over here? I'm like, fuck. So we finally get to the exam room where they're going to reset his ankle, and I have like 8 doctors crammed in this tiny ass room just wanting to look at this fucker, because like for months they had driven to work getting on the highway wondering, is today the day I'm going to get shot at, because there's a crazy fucker out here just shooting into cars randomly. So they all wanted to see what this guy actually looked like. They tell him, okay, so I'm going to give you a shot of this, and I forget what the drug actually was, and that's going to make me not feel you reset my ankle. And he's like, no, it's going to make you not remember that you felt anything when I reset your ankle. So he's like, but it's still going to hurt. Like, yeah, you're still going to feel it. And so he's like not wanting to go through it. I'm like, dude, it's going to be like going to the dentist. You're going to go unconscious, and then you're going to wake up, and all of this is going to be over. And he's like, fine, okay. So they give him the shot, and they reset his ankle, and like he's still clearly conscious, and he's still like, like as they're putting his ankle back into place. Can tell when he comes out of it like 30 minutes later, and he starts like looking around like where am I? And I'm like, yeah, welcome back to the land of the living. And he looks at his ankle, and it's all like it's in a cast and cool. And then like he gets this anxious, worried look on his face. And he looks over at me like, when I was under, did I say anything? You were screaming in pain. What else are you worried that you said? And he's like, so I didn't say nothing. And then it clicks in my head, oh, he thinks he confessed. He thinks he confessed to his crimes while he was out of it. And I really wanted to screw with him, but I also wanted to have a decent night.
Yeah. Oh my
I
god.
I really wanted to go like, yeah, you started demanding this detective's phone number to talk to him. I chose not to fuck with him at all because
Aw.
if he's agitated, that means that could cause an incident, and I really wanted this to be as incident free as possible. He ended up pleading guilty anyway. Why are you so worried about confessing? You know, plead guilty. Okay.
Inmate knocks out another inmate's teeth for assaulting his grandmother. Oh shit, that sounds intense.
So this story is going to get very sad, and then this story is going to get very awesome. And I want you to bear with me through the sad part and the possibly traumatic part. If anybody here is triggered by I'm going to abbreviate this SA. Those of you who know, you don't have to listen to this because it is going to get pretty sad and then it's going to get really awesome. So just hang on. So we had an inmate at the jail I used to work at. His thing to do was to get on the city bus, stalk elderly women and follow them home. And he'd make sure like they lived alone or that they were like widowed or single. And then at night he would break into the home and he would assault them, he would torture them, and he would SA them, and he would leave them for dead. He got away with this a few times because the victim ended up passing away due to other causes before the trial. Last time, though, he did that, the victim did not do that, and she ended up testifying, and he ended up going away. He is serving a life sentence in prison now. He is not getting out. He is never coming back into society, and rightfully so. During his stay at the jail, though, we used to have him in General Pop, and for some reason, this bastard would brag about his crimes, about what he would do to old ladies. Unfortunately for him, the grandson of one of his victims was also an inmate there with him, living next to him. This kid waited for chow time because so they get their meal served on these big honking plastic trays that are reusable, rewashable. Waited till he got his tray, and this fucker was behind him, and he immediately turns around and smashes him in the face with the tray. He gets knocked out, and he's on the ground, and he's like, "Duh, duh, duh," with the tray, like repeatedly. I'm not there yet, but I'm told by my coworker who was there that they had like this Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory moment where you're watching the kid like screw up, and he's like, "No, stop, don't." We waited for an adequate amount of backup to arrive to safely and securely separate them. In the meantime, every single one of his front teeth gets knocked out, and a detective shows up later to assess the situation. And this detective comes up to me, and he's holding this bag, and he puts it to my face, and he says, "Did I get them all?" He's holding a bag of this man's teeth.
Oh,
as an evidence back, like, "Hey, did I get them all?"
Jesus, that's incredible.
To this day, he never got any like replacement teeth or dentures. It's still like a freaking open window in his mouth.
It's hard to feel sorry for him.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? One of those people you just can't feel sorry for.
Yeah, we've gone through. Wait, what the fuck is that first one?
I know which one you're talking about.
Oh no, no.
Okay, so I'm going to have to use some other words here. This inmate we had enjoys animals too much. There is loving the animals in the world, and then there is loving the animals in the world. So this guy was caught at a public park. He had done some things to some ducks at the park that had resulted in 2 of them being dead. He was in the process of doing that same thing to a third when the police finally showed up because too many kids and their moms called about the weird man in the park with his pants down. He's now in jail, and rightfully so. And the other inmates somehow learned of why he was there. They would walk past his cell and they would go whack, 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 just quacking like a duck. Anytime they walked by his cell, just to screw with them. And it got to the point where he complained to our administrators that he was going to sue the jail if we didn't stop the harassment against him. And I'm like, we're not the ones harassing you. Those are the other inmates. I can barely get them to do what they're supposed to do. Like I have no control over what they say to you. This is a free country. We got talked to our administrators like, you need to try to get them to stop doing it to him. And I'm like, how? Like, maybe this guy shouldn't do that to ducks. Did he ever think about that? Maybe he won't get quacked at.
Tell me a story, I wanna hear it. You might think it's boring, but I'm interested. Tell me a story, I wanna hear it. You might think it's boring, but I'm interested.